Okay, so let's start with today's lecture. We're looking at the principles of information security. And implementation phase. So what about, we will be looking at this is the same content. Yeah, so yeah. So when you're talking about security implementation, so security implementation phase is how any organization manages its information security. Now, it is one thing about putting the framework in place, and the other one is implementation of this. So when you are looking at implementation, you're looking at the procedures on the people. So the procedures are the guidelines or the company policy or the guidelines. And then you need to train the people. So that is the next step. And you also have to deal with the hardware issues like firewalls and all the security infrastructure that you want to put in. And then you need to look at the software that you want to use and what kind of encryption security you want to put in place. And then you need to classify the data, what kind of security measures and how the data, is it classified data, is the data can be semi-secure. So what is the level of security? That is what we're gonna deal with today. So the security project management usually is done as a project plan, right? So it is about, first step will be planning the project. Then we need to investigate what tasks must be taken and we supervise them as they go along. And then finally, we will do the wrapping up of the implementation security management plan. So each organization, like, they must understand what is it that my company needs. And then they have to put the management of security in place after they have completely understood what is required for them and how much data security is needed for them. Then the creation of a project plan was primarily done using using a breakdown structure, work breakdown structure. We call this as WBS. So in a basic work breakdown structure, the project tasks are usually, first of all, you list what work to be done, and then you assign the work to the people who want to do it, and then we understand what are the start dates for this project and what are the end dates for this project, and then we calculate how much time and how much energy or how much effort is needed to finish the work. So to implement certain part of the project, how much energy is needed, how much effort is needed. Then we estimate the capital and non-capital expenses. What is the meaning of a capital expense? Can anybody tell me what is called a capital expense? What's the meaning of a capital expense? Oh? What is the meaning of capital?
Is a major expense or?
No, capital means investment. It's money investment. Like, you need to start a business, you need capital. So capital expense is the money that you need to put in. That's called a capital expense. And then we have non-capital expenses. Non-capital expenses are usually time and resources. These can be non-capital expenses. And you need to identify dependencies between the tasks. In order for me to build a firewall, I need to get the framework ready, right? So one thing can be done only after the other thing was done. So this one work depends on the other work. So that's called, you need to identify work dependencies, right? And now we need to create what we call a project plan. So now, for example, if you look at this, I gotta hide this. Okay, how can I hide this? Okay, so now, okay, fine. Okay, so if you look at work dependencies, you need to look at the resources and start and the end dates, right? When it is starting and when it is ending. And then you need to look at the estimated number of estimated time it is going to take. For example, contract, the field, and confirm network assumptions. So that is probably going to take 200. The non-capital expense is 200, and the capital expense is $0. So it is just making a phone call, right? And then you need to purchase the firewall hardware, let us say. And then when are we going to start it, when are we going to take it, how much time it's going to take. Estimated capital expense is going to $4,500 for the firewall, and then $250 for non-capital expense. That means in order to facilitate that, you need to pay somebody to bring it, blah, blah, blah. So that is what. So now the next one is configuration of that firewall. So you need probably a network architect. So if you have a network architect, he will ask you for money, right? So that will be a non-capital expense. You need to configure the firewall by paying like 4 hours of labor to a network architect. And then you need to package and ship it to the field office. So this is packaging. So how much is it going to take? It's going to take $85 for packaging and shipping. You probably don't, that's not a capital expense, that's a delivery kind of expense. So, but remember, but all these three things must be done in order, right? You need to do, in order for me to do task 2, which task should I complete? I need to complete task 1, correct? Then in order for me to configure the firewall, I need to finish task 1. So task 2 depends on task 1. Similarly, task 3 depends on task 2. Similarly, working with the technical resource and installing the firewall, this is done by a network architect. So this will depend on whether the package was shipped to the field office. And once it is shipped to the field office, the network architect will install it for another $600. And then you complete the vulnerability assessment and the penetration testing. So then it will cost you, and again, a network architect has to be paid around $1,200 to get the work done. But and for me, this is the number 5. And then it will probably take you around 12 hours to get this done. So now, then finally, you get the remote office sign-in. And then that will probably cost you. So you see how these tasks are created. This is like a simple project plan this is like a simple project plan that you can create. Okay, is this clear? If you understand this, you understood almost half of the class. This is the most important slide that you need to follow and understand. Is that clear for everybody? Okay, so now we are looking at the project planning. So when you are doing a project planning, so you need to estimate the amount of time, how much time is required and how much effort is required. So that depends on the funds, like how much can you afford, right? So you need to do what we call cost benefit analysis. So are you familiar with this term, cost benefit analysis? Is anyone familiar with this concept of cost benefit analysis? So when you are investing in something, you need to know whether it is a good investment or not. So what is the benefit for you to do that? So that's called a cost benefit analysis. So if you want to invest in a firewall, right? What is the benefit that I'm getting from investing in a firewall? So that's basically all the parts of finance. You're looking at the financial considerations. You need to look at both the public and private organizations. They have their own budget limits, right? So you need to justify how much of money is needed, and and then we need to look at the priorities. What are the things that need to be done? Which are the most important ones, right? What are the ones that can be that we can do later, or maybe we can ignore, that's not high priority. So you need to understand those priority considerations. So you need to understand what are the, how to prioritize the threats, what are the major threats that I am exposed to, how to prioritize these threats. So this is a very high threat, like, you know, access to this, like, you know, you can categorize one security breach and say this is a high risk, so let's safeguard that. And then you need to look at the time and scheduling. So sometimes it is not possible to get all the people in order to get the work done, right? So that's why you need to understand how much time is there to order, to receive, to install. So you need to calculate this, and you need to plan the entire project in a particular framework. So, and you also need to know that in order for you to achieve all this, you need to have trained workforce. So you need to train the employees, and you need to understand how much time it's going to take for you to accomplish this. Finally, we have staffing. Staffing is a key, especially you are investing in a network architect. Network architect for a small business would probably cost you around $3,000 to $4,000, from selection of network, selection of firewalls, and like up till installation and implementation. So probably it will cost you about $3,000 to $4,000. Let's see here. Now, how much you are paying here for the network architect, like for 4,500. For the, that is for the firewall purchase, and then you are paying $800, $600, and $1,200 and $800. So that's, if you add it up, that's 2,600, around close to $3,000. Even for a small business, it's going to cost you, staffing is going to cost you $3,000. So a good network architect is necessary for you to get this done, and you need to have qualified and trained people on the on not only on the design side, but also on the implementation side. And you need to have good project planning ideas, like, you know, you need to procurement considerations is like, where do you want to get this thing from? So when you are getting services from different suppliers, how do you want to procure? Who are your suppliers? Who are your manufacturers? Who is giving you discount? Who is giving you at a cheaper price? Who is delivering quickly? Who produces most reliable products? So you need to look at all the procurement options that you have. So you need to scan the market space, and then you need to make a decision. Then organizational feasibility, sometimes policies, and you need to understand that policies, when you design a policy, it will take some time to develop, and new technologies, once they are installed, so they need to be configured and tested, and then before the implementation and everything is going to run smoothly, you need to look and check whether is this something that is feasible for my organization. So, and then you also need to make sure that the changes you make are visible and understandable to all the users of the system. So, and you need to make sure that sometimes you require additional authentication or verification in order for you to ensure that the people who are supposed to make the changes, are supposed to make the purchases, are the only people who are doing that. So all of this is very, very critical as a part of a project plan. And then you need to look at the scope. What is the scope of a project? How do you define scope, right? Sometimes you say, oh, we don't have that much of scope. So scope means the boundaries, the outer limits, the extremities with which you can work. What is the maximum amount of time? Okay, it's going to take 20 hours. No, that's beyond the scope of this project. So that means we don't have enough time. So you can say this firewall is going to cost you $50,000. Or you can say, okay, that is beyond the scope of our budget. So that means you're looking at the outer limits, maximum limits. That's called scope. So project plans should not attempt to implement the entire security at a time. So they need to phase it out. So they need to make sure that you work with smaller, easier things first, cheaper things first, and then you work with, okay, maybe for this, we also need this additional security. Maybe we also need this additional security, and so on and so on. So we need to, the need for a project management is skill. Network architect or network administrator is a key person. You need to have broad knowledge or specialized knowledge of the entire project. And most projects, they require a CISO, Certified Information Security Professional, or Certified Information Security Officer, CISP or CISO. Usually, we will learn about the trades and about the titles in the next class. In the next class is all about personnel. So, but today, a CISO is a Certified Information Security Officer, is a skilled manager who is making the project management decisions, and who is looking at all the different techniques that, and also looking at the sheet that you see here. He's managing this entire worksheet, work plan. Okay, so that is the role of that is why we need a project manager or a CISO. So what are the other reasons why we need to invest in a project manager? So supervised implementation is critical. Supervised implementation means when you are implementing this information security into your framework, you need to implement it with vigilance and with supervision. So some organizations, they designate one particular person who is coming from outside and is working only on this particular implementation plan. Some companies, they say, we want local people, somebody who is within the company, to step up and present this. So it is up to the organization whether they want to designate an external champion or an internal person. So usually a senior IT manager or chief information officer or CIO can lead the implementation. So the difference between a CIO and a CISO is CIO is primarily not related with security. So CISO is primarily related with security. But for most organizations, CIO can actually do the work of CISO as well. So optimal solution is to find out the right person for the right job. So the need is continuing. It's like you're looking at the execution now. Now you need to measure the results against what is expected. Like, you need to give feedback. When you are executing the plan, sometimes things work out, sometimes things don't. You need to understand, okay, this is not a good strategy, let's not do this. This is a good strategy, let's do it a little bit better. And so on. You need to make collective decisions on what is the right format, what is the right approach in execution of our project management plan. So the project manager can adjust a few parameters, like he can tweak with 3 parameters, he can play with three parameters. One of them is the effort and the money that is allocated, right? So he needs to be within that budget, right? He can adjust the money, he can adjust it, but he cannot cross the certain limits, right? And then you cannot schedule the scheduling impact. You need to make sure that when you are scheduling the work, it doesn't impact a lot of other people who are already in it. The scheduling impact will be resonating throughout all the elements of the project management. All the people who are involved will be changed if we are changing one thing. So you need to keep that in the mind. And then quality and the quantity of the deliverable. What is it that you want to deliver? What is it that you want to finally produce? So, and how many firewalls are you required? What time is required? And what quality of the firewall are you looking at? What is the security threat that you're having? So you need to make an executable plan as well. So the feedback loop, as I said, is very critical, especially in network technologies and information security. So once you develop a plan, right? You develop a plan, then you do the work, and then you measure the progress. Okay, if the progress is good and if it is complete, then the project is complete. You terminate. But if the progress is measured and you're not happy with the progress, right? It's not complete. Now, then you have to ask, okay, so it's not completed, but are we on track? Are we on the right track? So if you are on the right track, you go back and you continue working, right? You measure the progress, you go back and continue working. But if you are not on target, you have to see, okay, something is going really wrong here. Let's change something. Let's correct. Let's consult our CIO or CISO and seek some advice, and then he will give us new work, and then we have to go through this process one more time. Is this loop clear? Is this work loop clear? Firdaus, Ashik, is this making sense? Okay, so now let's move on to, guys, can you hear me? I mean, sometimes I feel like, Jai Venkat, are you here? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So this
Yes,
is
sir. Yes, sir.
today it's not about not primarily about the project management. It's not primarily about the technical structure, but it is all about implementation and organization. So this is kind of, so if you pay attention, you can use a little bit of this knowledge along with the technical things that you learned in your report. So there are like a few things you can add in your report, like based on what you learned here. So yeah. So then
Yes, sir, I'm listening.
What, you have a question?
No, sir, no, sir.
Yeah.
I'm listening. I'm just saying I'm listening. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, so you continue the final element in the project management is wrapping up. So this is still like wrapping up seems to be like, you know, you finished up everything and you washed up, but it is still, there is still a lot of work. It's like finalizing the reports and gathering the documentation and creation of a meeting and then approvals, signings, and all the presentations at the end. So all of this will be like a project wrap up. So, and we also look at, okay, if we wrapped up the project, are there any things that we did not do? Are there like any things that we did very badly? Is there something that we need to change for the future? And all this, like, you know, drawing conclusions to improve how you can do better. So that's called, that's all about project wrapping up. And then we need to look at the conversion strategies. So some components of securities are usually very well planned, and their provisions must be made from the changeover from the previous method to when you are changing to a new method, you need to do the changeover. So these changeovers can be a direct, or like, you know, you can, like if you want to implement a firewall security, then you want to go in phases, let us say, like, you know, you can directly change, or you can change in phases. Let's change a little bit and then change a little bit. And then you look at things that are done parallelly, right? You can do parallel operations, thing like, okay, 4 or 5 divisions can be done all together at the same time. That's called parallel operations. So when you are implementing a change, when you are converting something into a better secured structure, so you always need to keep in mind of all the strategies that you want to use, all the approaches that you can use when you are converting. So if you look at it, so if you, many slides are still there. So now if you look at an organization has certain rules and guidelines. We call these policies, right? And within these policies, you need to look at the framework of the network within these policies and whether these policies are within that framework. Then within the network, you need to look at the systems and whether they are safeguarded. And within each system, you look at the applications if there are any threats. So this is how the security, like the model is, right? You know, you need to look at the large organizational policies, and then we look at the networks that are embedded in it. Then you look at the systems, and then within the system, within each system, you can look at the applications and try and develop the safeguarding. So now outsourcing, you guys should be familiar with outsourcing. Nowadays, most of the work is being outsourced, especially the technical work. The software work is usually outsourced. Uh, so the reason for outsourcing is like it provides cheaper labor and like technical work. For example, if you have a company in Australia, you set up a company in Australia in Sydney. So if you want to do some technical work, I mean some hardware work, obviously you need a local network agent. But if you are managing a software, if you want to buy a software or build a software, probably it might make sense to outsource that to somebody in India who will work for only 1/3 of the price as you have to pay here. Like you have to pay around close to $200 an hour for somebody here. In India, you can pay $500. I mean, pay $50 an hour, and then people will be able to work for you in developing that software. So outsourcing is actually works well, but you need to make a decision. Like company has to make a decision whether it is a good idea to outsource or not a good idea. And the technology governance is something that it is used to manage the implementation, right? What are the costs? Where are we standing together? Where are we standing right now on the technological ladder, right? Are we like Apple, for example? Take Apple. How Apple governs the technology. Apple iPhone, like iPhone was introduced in 6 years ago. Now you see now we have iPhone 10. So iPhone gradually evolved, right? And then so you need to govern the technology and you need to impact the costs from the implementation of the technology. So you need to manage the change. So what are you changing and how can you improve the communication and build that coordination between different departments and reduce the wastage of efficiencies, reduce the wastage of productivity. And overall, how can we deliver the quality that we are looking for? How can we improve the quality of our service, of our end product? And then the non-technical aspects are also must be considered. So these are primarily dealing with people. When you are dealing with when people are dealing with or interfacing with technical systems, right? There is always you need to understand the culture, right? And what are the different considerations that are when you are implementing a new change. Is it like do you need a passcode or do you need a new badge to open your laptop? So and that is also an element, right? And by the way, I want to remind you that the password that you enter to log in into your computer is also kind of outdated. Right now, the latest technology is like you open your laptop and the laptop sees you, right? It recognizes your face and then it starts automatically. That is already been implemented today, but unfortunately not my laptop. But you can actually, the companies such as Google, they are already advocating for passwordless future, right? No passwords in the future at all. Only you are the password, like your face, your eye pupil, iris, that becomes the password. So that way it becomes more and more secure. Now passwords are being breached every day in thousands. So, and people are unaware of the risks that are coming up with the password. So the change, how to implement such a change. So the prospect of change can cause usually build up resistance. So whenever I ask you to do something new, usually people are say, oh, why should I do this? So there is always resistance. So the stress of change, that can increase the profitability, that can change the profitability. Like then people are prone to make more mistakes, they are not paying attention. So now there are several models of change, right? When you are making up a change in a system, we have like what we call Levin's model. When like you need to Levin's model of change. I also teach what we call change management for another university. So in change model, Levin's change model is very popular in the sense like it. So when you have an organization, like you want to bring about a change, think of it like a big ice block, right? If there is inside the ice block, there is some impurity. How do you remove that impurity from the ice block? Right? You have to unfreeze it. You have to melt ice block, then remove the impurities, and then you have to freeze again, right? So that is what Levin's model is talking about. So it's a culture of change management. So the other information security certification and accreditation, these are key, right? There are several regulations in United States, for example, and also in Australia, not so much as in US, obviously. US has been there around for a long time, and there are more breaches and more threats in US. There have been more companies are based in United States. So now today we are facing a lot of problems with the regulations, right? So small businesses and the businesses, they have to build up the privacy and govern the security of the organizations. So in summary, we need to move from like a security blueprint to a project plan, like how to organize the project. And then we looked at different considerations that are there in the project plan. And then we looked at the role of the key CIO or CISO. And then we looked at technical problems and non-technical problems. And what are the non-technical problems? Are people's problems, like how to deal with people's and their attitudes with change. And technical problems, we already talked about technical problems when it comes to technology governance. So these are the key things that we have covered. So I hope you understood. Most of you were able to follow. Any questions on this?